Let's open it.
Okay, I will call the Wednesday, August 9th, 2023 meeting of the Monona Park and Rec Board to order. Looks like we don't have Tony, we don't have Rachel.
We'll just keep an eye on screen if they show up.
Okay. Is there, we have minutes? Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the July 12th meeting?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second? Changes? All in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Minutes are approved. No appearances or?
I have one.
She says you can't hear very well. Usually the sound really picks up well in there.
Just be the background too. Is that any better, Jennifer? No.
Huh.
Do you have your Bluetooth on maybe? See if your phone's connected to Bluetooth. She's muted. It could be, she's on your, she's muted. She is muted for speaking, but she should do it here.
Huh.
Reception is there too.
Oh. All right, well. We'll go on and see, hopefully maybe it'll get better, or we'll try to speak up.
Yeah.
Do we have an appearance? Chris W., are you here to speak?
Yep, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Oh, great. So yeah, just two things I wanted to speak on. One, I just wanted to publicly commend Jake and his staff. I've been critical of him in the past, and I've sent him some just some pictures and some just notes on the park maintenance. Me and my family live at 4810 Winniquot Road, which is on the corner of Fireman's Park up by Progressive. And so just wanted to say thanks to Jake. And I noticed, you know, the parks, I don't know if it's the weather or different staff this year help or more help or what, but the parks seem, specifically Winniquot Park, Fireman's Park, seems in better shape than it was last year when I was pretty critical of it with him. So thanks, Jake. And two, real quickly, and I don't know if this is the correct forum or place to do it in, but just wanted to comment on the Winniquot pedestrian bike trail. And I probably haven't been following it close enough. I had saw a drawing of it last year or in January where it was going completely, there was two options. One, just connecting it from the skate park to the school, and the other one going through the middle of the Fireman's Park and kind of out towards Progressive. And I guess I don't know, I'm a little ignorant as to where that landed, but I recently, a neighbor had brought up a picture that had changed the path going out from the park, from Fireman's Park out to Progressive, from the east side of the street to the west side of the street, which borders our property, which I'm not completely opposed to. I guess I'm more opposed to just financially adding a sidewalk in there. It's on our backyard, and so I watch all the traffic that goes in and out of there all day and on the weekends and stuff, and just personally don't feel that a sidewalk is needed there. There's just not a lot of traffic going there. If there is a sidewalk there, I in the latest iteration with it on the west side of the street, it seems a safety factor to have a crosswalk in the middle of the drive down to Fireman's Park, as opposed to up at Progressive at this two stop signs at Progressive and Winniquot, where there's already a crosswalk sign and a crosswalk that goes across Winniquot Road. So it just seemed a little odd to me that it would get pushed down, to the middle And just doesn't seem to be a safe option. So I didn't know if that was something that could be talked about now, or if that was something I should talk about one-on-one with either an alder or with Jake. And then my last point on it is just from an engineering and financial standpoint, having it on the west side of the road looks to be much more expensive than going down the east side of the road. I know I talked about with Jake months ago about it, and there was some concern about a fire hydrant on the west side of the street, which is 5 feet off of the curb. And I know on Winnequa Road, you know, on a much obviously busier part, you know, the sidewalk butts right up to the curb, and there would be room to get it between the fire hydrant and the curbside there. So I didn't know what the issue is with it there. Also financially, on the east or the west side of the street, there is a grade drop off from the curb of about 18 inches. So I assume to put a sidewalk in there would have to be some type of retaining wall added in order to get that up to level, which again, financially, you know, I don't think it makes sense to put a sidewalk in there at all. But if it would be, I would think it would be on the flatter side where you wouldn't need a retaining wall. So that's my 2 cents. I didn't know.
All right.
I guess I didn't know how to get feedback on it or who to talk to, or I assume it's not in this meeting as it's not on as an agenda item.
Yeah, right. I mean, the project, right. The project is in the capital budget, which we're going to be talking about in a minute, but the level of detail that you're talking about, and we wouldn't get to that until it's being designed. So that would be, you know, down the road. I guess I would suggest you if you haven't, sign up for alerts for Parks Board meetings and Park and Rec information. So that way, you know, it'd be easier for you to keep track of when we're gonna talk about it. So
Great. Yeah. I have signed up for that.
okay.
They're just hard to I guess with the meetings being in the middle of the day, it's harder to go to. So I didn't know if there was a specific person that I could talk to that could carry it, you know, or somebody on the board there, or if an alder was appropriate, or I'm sure Jake gets bothered with these things all the time, so he's probably not the appropriate person to go directly to about those items.
Yeah, if you didn't want to come to a meeting, you could always contact either myself, Doug Wood, or Alder Patrick DePula, who's also on the committee. Send, you know, our contact email information is on the city website.
He has my contact info.
Okay.
Yeah. Great.
All right.
All right. Thank you.
Chris,
Yeah.
If I could just add something, you started out talking about park maintenance and that you're on Winnequa and Progressive. I want to just let you know that tomorrow evening at 6 o'clock, we're going to have a park maintenance cleanup weed, the park get together. Neighbors in the area and others are going to be there helping. And so if you're interested, please come and join us. It'll be Arrowhead Park tomorrow evening at 6.
All right.
Great. And is that for all the parks, or is that tomorrow night's Arrowhead Park? And
Tomorrow night, we're going to be focusing on Arrowhead.
yeah, who would I'd love to email somebody, because I would love to be a part of that and love to have my family help out where I can. Is who should I contact to, you know, be kept abreast of those?
You can contact me, and my email is jeffhins@hotmail.com.
Great. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, so I think the only item then on a new business is discussion and recommendation of the 24 to 28 capital budget.
All right, so I provided a summary page in your packet. I still have narratives that I normally would do. Those will be included for the mayor and the council. There's a fair amount, and if you can recall, the last couple of years, the request for myself and this committee have been greatly reduced. And time catches up with all of us, and this is a year where I think that there's a lot of projects that are being proposed, a lot of maintenance projects in the capital budget. And so I think we'll just start by parks, and I can briefly just describe the project, and then we can go on any questions. I think we talked in detail about the North Ped Path construction. The only caveat I would have with this particular project that's being proposed in the capital budget is there was money this year. So if this is considered by the mayor to be included, we would be looking at a capital budget amendment per se to start design this fall into winter. And bid out in January, February, most likely a fall of 24 construction project. So there was money in there. If the mayor and the council approves the additional funding to do the second phase that we've talked about previously, we would be in that design phase, towards the end of this year.
Step out for a second.
Sure.
Ms. Quorum. Is that okay?
No, we're good.
Yeah, you're right, yeah.
And these are listed in your packet on that, these are the priorities that I feel via parks. The next is Maywood Park Engineering, and so that's part of the stormwater project. I was hoping we'd have some conceptuals for the part of it available for this meeting, but we're still have some questions, and Rebecca had submitted some information on the types of stormwater treatment devices for Maywood Park that would impact the park planning part of it. And so we need some follow-up with them. So a meeting scheduled with Rebecca next week, I believe. And then from there, we'll have a couple of those options from previously discussed amendments or amenities in the park and schedule a public input meeting. So as far as the capital budget, I'm throwing a number in that year 25 for construction. That may or may not be super accurate, depending on what way we might go with as far as like a build, if we are considering a building or a restroom facility, that number that I have in 2025 will change. And there's also some grant work with Nichols Road project, I think in the MPO that might impact, funding of the trail. So that one's still a little more fluid. Although I think the timeline of getting it done is still, at least from a staff level, is still in play of design in 24 and construction in 25. The truck replacement is third on our priority list. We have 2 trucks that we use for the majority of our trash rounds and work in the spring through fall season with our seasonals. And the oldest truck that we have is a 2005 Chevy 2500, and it definitely qualifies for replacement. I did have our mechanics score it. It's had brake issues and it's been down a significant amount of time. For example, this year we had 7 seasonals during kind of this summer peak period. And so when we can mow, we have 2 or 3 out on mowers and then need to have this many vehicles, but when we're not, we're maybe a couple in a truck and doing trash and shelters, and a couple doing ball diamonds and trailering to different sites, and then a couple doing, project-based work. So this is a pretty valuable truck. We will get asked the question about an electric truck or an electric option, but this particular truck that it would be replacing needs to be a 2500 series truck. And it would be outfitted with a snow plow. So it's got to be a little bit heavier duty to pull the type of trailer that we need for some of our large mowers and watering rigs. And then this quote includes having a snow plow in the front of it. So both Dan, one of our full timers, is got a CDL, so he can do his main truck has a plow, but he can also drive the big snowplow trucks. Emily is in the process of getting her CDL, but she doesn't have a pickup truck. So snow removal in the winter is generally, we have kind of taken over parking lots, or before Public Works was doing those for us. But with the ability that we have with one of our trucks to do lots, we'd like to have both of those trucks being engaged in the winter time. So that's a truck replacement. At least in 2025 is where the electric truck comes into play, and that's replacing a 2015 gas truck that we have, and that would be predominantly for trash rounds and hauling staff. The fireman park playground replacement, and then we're at number 4 then, so as part of that PED project, 125,000 would include the playground, the surfacing, which would get poured into clay. It was kind of an ADA best management. So it won't be, seems like a high dollar amount, but it won't be a lot of playground equipment. When you look at borders and surfacing, kind of in that same type of area. That playground equipment is from 1997 and has failed a couple of our safety components over the last couple of playground inspections. So that will be included as well in the narrative. The mowers have already been ordered, and that was recommended by this body and approved by City Council. So the 2 of our older John Deere 6-foot mowers are being replaced with 4 old 6-foot mowers, and then they'll come equipped for winter snow removal. We'll have a snow blower and we'll have on it. Paper shelter remodel we talked about. The breakdown of pricing is based on some of the quotes that I've gotten for some individual components: roofing, siding, gutters, restroom reconfiguration for ADA. The pictures will be, if you've been by the Schaefer shelter and seen kind of the work around the concrete, trip hazards, the bones of it are fine. It works great to be able to host our youth baseball program, adult softball, but it is a facility from 1988 that hasn't had a ton of ongoing maintenance on it, and so that would, I think, prolong the life of that building. We did install the sewage ejector pump this year. That was part of some funding that we had. It was kind of a priority issue, so that's in and working. And that's I am pretty confident in that price. New shelters right now are running in that $500,000 to $750,000, like basically what we would have at Fireman's or Oneida. When we start talking about four season shelters, we're at $1 million.
I've seen you working. You were down there today working.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, today we transitioned from softball, baseball now to flag football, soccer. So tonight you'll see the 5th and 6th grade tackle MG youth football teams will be out there. This weekend we have our annual adult softball tournament, and then we'll transition all those fields over to soccer to the north of that. And so it'll be a good we try to fit his fields in and look at where the past could be and where we could have the bump outs for ADA spectator seating. It does fit in quite nicely, I think, in that kind of north complex, and having that section of Schaefer and that finished with bathrooms is really conducive to the amount of play that we have here. We have increased the numbers, I think, every year in youth soccer to the point where we've got to go to now Saturdays and Sundays, one each day for the younger kids that we have, because we just have so many kids and teams now that are playing there.
Is that all Monona, or is it?
I mean, the influx of families, I think in that 3 to 5 has been pretty steady.
Right.
I do think we get some east side families as well that like to participate in our programs. Tree removal. So I just changed the name of it. So park tree removal, replacement and treatment. I did bump that up a little bit from what we would typically have. Far less removals I anticipate next year in our park system. The planting would probably, the amount budgeted would include planting for around the paths that are proposed in Winnequa Park, other areas, and then treatment. I'm looking at probably 3 to 4 large oak trees that would be eligible for that air spading technique that we did at Stonebridge a few years ago. And those are about $5,000 to $6,000 a tree to have spaded. But at least from my perspective, that main oak tree at Stonebridge looks great. One down by the water is one of those candidates. There's one at Winnequa that's a candidate. Probably the one at Arrowhead would be a good candidate. So we'd be working with our arborist and our contracted services to evaluate and look at those and start kind of identifying those larger mature trees that we want to put some money into saving. Woodland Park Management Plan, that's going to be a buffer number that's going to be in for the next several years. As you may or may not know, John and Peggy Traver are kind of stepping away from their extensive and long volunteering in the park. We met with the firm the other day and kind of then they have access to the approved management plan, and we're quite really impressed actually at the condition of the park and where we're at from where we were 15, 20 years ago to now. It's really just in a maintenance for the vast part of Woodland Park. We're really in a maintenance part where we'd be looking at prescribed burns, monthly visits to spot treat any invasives. And that's just kudos to Jonathan and Traver for the amount of work that they've done at that park. But we want to continue to be able to make sure that the work that they put in and the environment that has been established there continues, and that is outside of the grasp of what our staff can handle. So we'll have that as a most likely an RFP request for services. That would be a multi-year, contract to perform those services. Moving on, electric vehicle purchase. And so this one's coming back from a couple of years ago with a twist of applying for tourism grants for the help of the purchase. Mainly what we've noticed on our bigger special events like Monona Run, 4th of July Festival, the marathon, getting in and out of the city campus during that time with our regular vehicles in the park is really difficult. And so some of the things as we tweak our special event application is going to be requiring determining if like park and rec presence was needed at the event to help out with bathroom, shelters, electrical, and having an electric vehicle is way easier to navigate.
So you're talking about those Ranger scooters, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, well, for the one wheel.
There's no liability.
Yeah, so similar to our Polaris GM, that would be what we're looking at getting. And then, of course, we'd be using it for our summer staff, special events and park staff. So that is the electric kind of vehicle sustainability measure, is that not only we would be using it. I find it, I love driving them myself because I can drive them all through the parks and do, simple repairs, not have to have a large truck. So.
Who do we get that from?
So there's the rep is for Polaris is out of Wanakee, I think is can't remember the equipment place that we got the last one.
So it's a dealer, because I was just curious if there's any option of the dealer helping us out with it and advertising on it.
Oh, maybe. I mean, you just go on Polaris's website and you can just custom build, and then they, all the different options you
I
want.
was just curious because I'm having to know the owner of the Polaris dealership in DeForest.
Oh,
Is it worth asking? They might even.
so are you suggesting that we start allowing advertising on city vehicles as a way to defer
Well, I don't know
purchasing them?
if they let us use it, and it says, Man City.
So as a lease?
Yeah. With maintenance.
Sure.
You think it's worth a conversation? I think it is.
I mean,
I'll
I don't-
inquire.
I just hope that, purchasing, I prefer to own.
Okay. Just a
But
thought.
I also, if the tourism commission would say no.
Hmm.
I would assume this would
Okay.
be a project that the mayor.
The
would
only
not
reason
be-
like this would not work with other vehicles, but because it's the electric one and it's interstate,
Yeah.
I'd be willing to because it's, you know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
like. You know, they wouldn't do it with a truck, but
Right,
something like this to get out there. I don't know.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter either way, but just a thought.
it'd be interesting to see if they would be interested, I don't know.
I know like for Mallards, one of the dealerships basically for the season just leases them for free. Bunch of the vehicles that they use like that, like Gators and whatnot, and they kind of have their. Little flyer on it, yeah, provided by blah, blah, blah. So. They usually include maintenance and whatnot too, so.
Sure. The good thing, I guess, with, at least why we're so interested in this is we had purchased the first one in 2019, so we've now had it 4 years and have not had one single. issue
Maintenance
with it.
issues.
No maintenance at all, so like,
Like solid state, except for,
yeah, the battery charges all the time, so it's been great.
awesome,
And we got a lot of hours on it. The next 3 are basically maintenance related items, the hard concrete repairs. It's really challenging getting concrete contractors out to do small jobs or like replacement patches. And so after talking with a couple of our larger contractors that we work with, and some of the things that they do is they just get on basically a contract, you know, not to exceed this amount, and then you evaluate in the fall which items need to get done for the following year. And that way they can go out and just do all of them at once and for 25,000. And we've got now that 10 years of doing projects and having sidewalks through parks and it's the nature of concrete is that it chips and at some point it needs to be replaced or repaired. And so the priority areas we have right now for this that would be included in this year's the Schluter Park has got some significant stone cracking and trip hazards that we get grinded down. Grand Crossing Park has got a couple that of course appeared after the warranty was up. And Huska's got a couple areas that need it as well. So that is really just a maintenance related item that we cannot absorb into our operating budget. That we would like to have in capital. Same thing with the shelter staining. We have a beautiful cedar siding on shelters from firemen from 2013 to now. Those are typically recommended to restain every 3 years, and firemen's now is 10 years old and hasn't been restained. The question is that if this is approved, Green Park really needs it for protection of the wood there. The painting contractors recommend doing like a solid stain instead of a clear stain. You lose the kind of beautifulness of the cedar, but you get the protection of the wood. So it's a little bit of back and forth. And if this project's approved, we can have that back and have sampling and see what this board would suggest. I'm kind of indifferent. I really like the look of our brand new cedar with a kind of a semi-transparent stain on it, but I also understand that I don't know if it's feasible that we can do every shelter every 3 years, but over the next 3 years, they have them proposed for 2 shelters a year to become restained.
So historically, Jack, has that been scheduled, the maintenance of staining?
No.
You know,
We do painting of like,
Schluter also has some spots that,
correct, yeah, so Schluter would be the next.
given how much money we've put in, I
Right.
think that really detracts from the front of it, especially where it's being hit by a lot of sunlight.
Right.
It's looking kind of rough.
Right, gets faded and yeah, so I think those should be on just a scheduled plan now moving forward. So in 2025, we have Lattice and Schluter.
Okay, and regular staff can handle that.
No, this would have to be contracted out because it's a cleaning of, power wash, cleaning treatment and then the taping and the spraying. We could, but it's gonna take us 4 times as long as a professional and it's gonna take, then we're not gonna mow parks for 2 weeks, so.
What did they do? Didn't they do something this year at Fireman's or no, at Dream Park?
Dream Park, we did the doors, so we did the playground. staining, and we had a little bit of extra room. And then we had gotten a proposal to do the rest of it, but we just didn't have time to do all the wood exterior. So we did some power washing of it before the festival to try to get some of the dirt and grime off of it.
So the recommendation you referred to earlier by where we were getting it from is they talking about using a latex then rather than a stain?
It's just a solid color stain, so it still has the coloring of like the cedar, but you lose some of the grain and texture.
Yeah.
It just provides more protection to UV rays and breaking down. But you lose a little bit of the aesthetics.
Yeah.
Now, some will say it can still look pretty, but it does. Almost
And they
look
also
like
make,
a
I know a little bit about the cedar side of the house previously. but The, you can also buy stained products that have a UV.
protecting, right?
My experience with latex that they push kind of, or they were for a while, is that it peels. It peels
Peel off, yeah,
and looks pretty crappy quickly.
right,
But I'm assuming you're getting pretty up to date
correct.
recommendation.
Bike racks, benches, trash cans, those are standard replacement items. One of the things we notice if you get a chance to, we just don't have enough bike parking anywhere. Last night at National Night Out, for
Yeah.
example, you know, there's just a huge swath of bike, which is a great to see the amount of people biking, but even like the e-bikes now are so big. They need almost different type of bike parking because they don't fit. You know, in a normal rack, they need those half moons like we have. And so that is to bring in more, you know, those areas if we can. Then we moved down to the Toniawatha Road project. It is going to be doing most of Toniawatha from Votes up to Baskerville or Connectin. So part of that includes just mill and overlay on the road, but then part of it includes like water main replacement. So if we want to do it, I think we have previously talked about putting in the bubbler and hose bit at Arrowhead Park, and then the I did put bubbler and hose bit at Wildhaven, but really it would just be a hose bit to be able to do some watering and transplanting of the landscaping there is one of our signature priority parks.
Should that be reversed then for the money? Number 14 would be Arrowhead.
Yeah.
Park Bubbler at 15, and then
Yeah.
Wildhaven probably
Good
should
call.
be 15 and Arrowhead
Yeah.
25.
Thank you.
It's astonishingly expensive.
Well, that's a little bit of a buffer for, I can tell you that the LK drinking fountains are between $8,000 and $9,000 to purchase the outdoor, and then most of the time you're looking at a concrete manhole to put the water line into. Those are $7,000 to $8,000, and then, you know, the installation to do it, because then you put your water meter like right underneath, and it has a drain line right into a pit. They're heavy duty, it's
You can't
just,
just put a bucket out. But holy cow, that's expensive. Guess I would have never thought. Water fountain installation, it's like 15 grand.
Right.
okay, so that was kind of the quick shot on parks. Any questions or discussion on the priorities?
I'm just thinking of your, and one comment, your departments, the lack of racks, the Saris racks in Grand Park, were those donated by Saris or we purchased them? I'm
Well, the bike repair stations, yeah, are
not the
serious.
repair stations, just the circular, real simple, they're
Yeah.
U-shaped and.
Yep, I don't know if those are Cirrus or the other manufacturer, but. yeah.
It's, I don't remember one of those.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm impressed with how those are standing up.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people using those. My wife and I have done that a
Yeah,
lot, numerous times on there.
yeah,
I
and
mean, it's
Grand
a pretty
Cross,
simple.
Yep.
I'm guessing less expensive rack.
those ones are,
Those are pretty.
the cheapest ones are the U-shaped
Yeah,
ones
yeah,
that
yeah.
you can fit a lot in. But those ones are certainly nicer, you can't get as many bikes.
Right, they're
packed together.
standalone.
There's
Yeah,
more
they're more
standalone, but they're better for
pleasing,
e-bikes,
yeah.
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 I just wanna just kind of forecast out a little bit for you guys. Not that there's a lot in 2024, and the number is, you know, fairly significant, so we can expect that there will be changes and deletions from the mayor. As we look forward in 2025, that's where we'll be bringing back for a second time, maybe a third time, about Azusa Park, and trying to time what we anticipate is design of the public safety building into concurrently finishing the master plan for Winnequa Park in 2025. We've got more vehicle.
Winnequa or who's good?
Winnequa, who's the master plan is done.
Okay.
It would just be implementation.
Oh,
Between those
engineering,
two,
okay,
right.
got it, yeah.
A lot of things are gonna be carrying over, and then the Maywood Park construction would be the big project in 2025. Still trying to keep things balanced out a little bit over the next 5 years, but knowing we're pretty confident, we think Maywood Park and the stormwater, that has to get done. That's part of our DNR grant, so at least some form of park improvement will be happening there as part of that. The equipment replacement and how we can handle some of our specialty things. So like hauling our Zambonis, scissors lift, being able to do some things internally. And then the thing with Grand Crossing is shade. It really is shade. So I think there's a little bit of a, I don't say buyer's remorse or like second guessing on the design, but I think a big obstacle of getting use down there more often is just the lack of shade. It's really, really hot. So we'd like to bring that down there. And we are putting forth an effort, I think, strategically with our staff and working with departments to put more programs will be happening at Grand Crossing and trying to get more families and kids there at different times, and working with the hotel and the residents and trying to kind of pack that park in a little bit more, but it's very, very much the theme and comments is lack of shade. So like even with one picnic table right next to the building, and it's shaded from the building, that's where everyone sits. So that's just in there as a kind of a placeholder for different options that we can do. As for the rest of the 5-year in parks, you know, the Ahuska Park is a big number. That is because if we go to 2026, we're probably replacing the parking lot. The whole asphalt parking lot is getting to that point where it is going to need to be replaced. So I think the challenge, or at least the recommendation for me, is when we build parks, we have to maintain them, just like we have to maintain our streets, and we get to certain life cycles in our parks and they just need to have that being replaced. Or we have some deferred maintenance. If you look at the parking lots that we have at Nichols Road and at the end of Healy Lane, they're crumbling and falling apart. Some of our parking lots were dinged in our ADA for not having the right cross slope or, you know, access. So they're not necessarily the fun part of our capital budget process, but they are a little bit needed in what we need to do. So you'll see some of those coming through the next 5 years. The only other thing I would highlight is just, you know, at some point, depending on budget and is we either have to just drop either Ahuska or Winnequa as far as master plan construction out of our CIP. I try to have this balance from year to year type of deal in an effort to do. I just don't think it's financially realistic or feasible that it will make it through the mayor's budget or, you know, the council budget. I do passionately advocate that we do continue to try to do both, because I think both these parks serve very significant portions of our population and visitors. It's just we also have a lot of other smaller parks where we may say we would like to do that, or that this would be great for an upgrade here, but I will continue to advocate for pushing that message, at least to the elected officials, that these parks are important and play a valuable role in our community. Just hard because they're our two biggest parks, and it's almost like they're competing against each other for what the slice of the pie would be.
Well, they serve different populations, different
Purpose
uses.
is correct.
What, just at a high level, so Winnequa Park Phase 1 construction, the 3 million, what would we get for that?
Dredging,
Dredging.
that's what we're gonna get. We're gonna get dredging on the south from Nichols to Winnequa. And probably a more a bridge, you know, kind of more permanent bridge, with a
Right.
pathway system from Winnequa Road to. But the reports that we got from the dredging was that there was a need to dredge the rest of the channel. It may.
PCBs, you mean?
Yeah, no, the PCBs were contained in the north end just
Okay.
for like the flow and the
Oh, yeah.
volume of muck that was,
Right.
that was in it. I do think that there potentially, you know, after we get through Maywood, part of the discussion on the stormwater end was the expansion of the lagoon. On the South Lagoon, as far as one end of it, to create more stormwater capacity. And then that leads into options, but yeah, I think the dredging was like 3 million, but there was some grant eligible. It's a very high number
Right.
on the dredging of that lagoon.
Is there a potential for assessments to the property owners who are on the river?
I don't know, the question, I don't think
Because I
so.
mean, with the.
Oh, the last two properties maybe?
Well, no, you know, because I think all of the residents benefit from having a better water flow.
Oh,
that you
like
get
down on
folks-
Belle Isle?
Right. Where,
Yeah, I don't know. I guess
you know,
that'd be
with
something.
streets, if you have the asphalt curbing, you're being assessed for the reconstruction on those streets. And so, you know, dredging, you know, who's benefiting the most? It's gonna be the people who are living on the river.
So when you say river, you're talking about like Sumac Lagoon?
Well, you were talking, if I heard you correct, you were saying south of the
South.
park.
I'm sorry, South Lake Nichols Road to Winnick in the park, confined to the park
in the-
space.
I was
Yeah.
thinking you were going
Yeah.
from
No,
That-
that
across south.
We already did that. The Sumac Lagoon got dredged whenever
2010.
we did
And then
all
there's
that
some
stuff.
mechanical.
And they did
dredging
get assessed for there
Yeah,
Okay,
for quite a, it's a pretty good chunk.
right.
yeah, because then, you know, the users for Winnequa certainly benefit from that section from Nichols south.
Yeah, I think it's gotta be. I think it's gotta be right on to the area where your property is, you know, how much frontage you'd have. I don't think that. Winnequa Road neighbors on the park would. Get assessed for dredging within the park. That's just guess.
Well, they mostly have, there's parkland between,
Correct.
it may not be very much parkland,
Right.
you know, but there's a little bit, they don't actually abut the water, so they
Right.
wouldn't get assessed.
Right.
I just want to go back just for a second on the Winnequa Park Trail, because if we did, especially if we did. Had a project, maybe in phases, but to go from. From the new bridge all the way up through to Nichols and then do the, you know, the north part we're talking about. That's definitely a big enough. Project that. There, I think very potentially could be MPO federal funding. Actually, if we keep it under 1 million, we might get 80%, 79%. Federal funding for it. We just approved last Wednesday, right? Yeah. The STVG urban program, which is kind of the biggest pot of money they get, $17 million for the entire metro area. This is probably a one-off, like it's not gonna happen again, but about 9 million of that is for path projects. And there's one in Windsor that because it's under 1 million. They get 79%, the others get about 60 to 65% funding, just smaller projects, kind of recognizing that the federal federal funds, make it, more of a headache and more hoops and
Right.
so. The percentage is higher, but.
So do you think, I think the challenge has always been on like demonstrating a regional connection. As part of that, or is that not part of the NPO? Because that's like the Dane County Parks grant is for bike trail. Like showing that it has some sort of regional connection.
Yeah, I mean, certainly you can show connectivity, that's a plus, but one of the projects. Is in Windsor, but I don't know what it.
And that wasn't part of like a bike path.
Would the connectivity be within the community? Does it have to be regional? Does it, I mean, that plays a pretty important part for
Yeah,
parts of Monona to be able to access the central
Right.
part of our community and the school.
I mean, the big one that got approved was Glacial Drumlin Path out from being it on the other side of the interstate. And so which is obviously a huge barrier. So that's obviously has big regional impact. The Westtown Path on Gammon Road that. I don't know if it's regional, I guess it is. I mean, it certainly
Sure.
connects with other.
next other bike path.
But I mean, this, on one end, it would connect to the lake. In fact. If you
Yeah.
take it all the way up through, so
Yeah,
I think it's. It's worth looking.
yeah,
at.
absolutely.
Absolutely. So just speaking about the path, just out of curiosity, in the 24 budget, the other revenue, the 175,000, where's that come from?
That's
What-
from existing, what was already approved
In the
and
budget,
borrowed,
okay.
yeah, in this year's budget,
That's what I was
so.
thinking, but not sure.
Make myself a note, I'll check with Brad and the guys at MPO,
Yeah,
see what they think, and if, it might mean. That first phase would have to get pushed back a little. To get into the funding cycle.
right, but only 80% funded with.
Yeah.
Be all right. And I do think this project, this patent project, could also have some tourism funding as well. Talking with the race organizer, I think there's a lot of energy about potential reroute. A lot of times they go down the Greenway. I'm on the path and then run like around the community center, like on the sidewalk and end up to Nichols, for the start finish line. Or I think with just some simple adjustments, they can either come down the access drive on progressive lane and just come straight in, or still come down Greenway and take that little path and then have a start finish on the actual bike trail. So that would then again be justified to have that as a tourism grant component of it as well. The double win is then you could potentially just keep Nichols Road open, during the events that we have, these races and runs and whatnot.
And then that's real solid forward thinking. That's not gonna change. I mean, things like the pickleball might change.
Right.
People's wanting to use that for runs and biking and
Right.
stuff.
We know we
that
have-
changed. That's
right.
gonna be.
Okay, any other questions on parks? Okay. Pool for next year. We're at the 5-year part of code that we have to have an inspection. We did include funding to repaint and caulk the interior of the slide. That was done in 2011, I believe. And the exterior still looks pretty good, the blue. But the interior on the white, that process is taking the caulk out, kind of sanding between the seams and priming it and putting in epoxy that not only helps preserve the life of the slide, but also makes it faster. So that would be for next year. I did put in pool. Could have been in parks, but another vehicle purchase. This is really for our recreation staff and admin staff, Missy and Jessica. This would be a hybrid, our electric gas minivan. Both of them have responsibilities on visiting sites, alternative sites, picking up supplies, concession items that are all being done with the personal vehicles and daily bank runs. Just don't have the ability to schedule some of our vehicles that they could use at certain time. And they don't claim mileage, they should, that would be an operating budget expenditure. And I just don't think it's fair, and I don't think it's right that we're making or asking our full-time staff to be driving the personal vehicles to pick up ice cream and whatever it may take. And so this would be dedicated for a recreation staff, and also that we just have multiple sites where we might have our staff need to drive equipment to.
So shouldn't that really be in parks though, or?
Well, I put it under the pool because
Community
it's,
center.
yeah, maybe community center for admin.
Right, right.
It would be partially pool, you know.
Yeah.
It could be anywhere, I guess. And then the pickleball tennis course, making a little bit of a issue here too as well in the pool. Pool concession expansion round 3. So the big challenge we have with the pool, we don't have an issue with attendance. We have a lot of people visiting the pool, but the concession area where we, by code, we require people to keep their food or drink is in the concession area. So it's not big enough. The flip side is that we also talked about the opportunity to start to offer the pickleball course for like corporate business rentals at certain times that you could book a pickleball party. So we have all the paddles, we have all the balls. We could have a facility where maybe a pizzeria could deliver pizzas in to a group of 20 people in this area and have a gate from the pickleball courts into kind of this seating area with a shade structure over the top of it, bike parking along that, and then drinking fountain in that area, whether that be the challenge with the pool is, you know, we don't open until late, you know, late May. We don't have an outside drinking fountain. And given the amount of time people are staying, that could be their the electrical box that's there that serves the lights and has a very outdated panel in it as well. So that is that kind of portion of it. A little bit of Winnequa Park Ped project probably would all be included in that type, but it could be a standalone project as well. If you want, I can get a number if we want to look at higher. I mean, the lighting on the first court of the tennis / pickleball courts is work. The skate park has adequate coverage, but if we think that reducing the amount of night play because of the lights, that may be the time to look at a couple extra light poles as well. Originally, when we did this project 2017, we were kind of looking at end of life of the courts to redo them. And now I just don't have any hope for any facility in my tenure here. So I would advocate that if we maintain and expand upon what we have now, that might not be the worst thing in the world. Now, I don't think we're getting a new rec center in the next 20 years. So we want to have better lighting at the current pickleball tennis courts. This may be the time to look at it.
I think you're too pessimistic, but it's not gonna be. Yeah. It's gonna be a while, for sure.
Again, concrete repairs come in, the sidewalks along the pool or on the deck at certain points on the deck. Given that it's a 30-year-old facility, have some needed maintenance issues that need to get addressed. Patron storage staff lockers. So probably the number one complaint we have with our staff is that we have some old metal originals to the pool storage lockers that are hard to open and are rusty. This project includes the ability to have staff be able to secure their belongings while they're on duty, and then have a bank of rope on the outside of the pool deck. Those would be then movable that we could use at Grand Crossing for ice skating in the winter time. So we could have some protected, been to Grand Crossing when there's a lot of people, there's a lot of stuff everywhere, inside, outside. This would give some lockable, lock it up. And then the deck furniture comes in as a standard, just replace them as they break.
I like the blue deck chairs, those are nice.
Oh, yeah, and with the cushy on that. I agree with that. I'm still in the parenting phase where I'm in the water. So
I'm
a
like,
couple more years and I will leave.
down the slide a couple times.
Yeah.
and back on.
The pessimistic side of me is you look at the pool, I am putting in. Projects years moving forward with the assumption that we're not getting anything new, and this is what it's gonna take to maintain what we have. And so we have. The pumps were replaced this year, the main pool pumps, ordered, not in. Kind of. Crossing our fingers on our old pump, and we got another week and a half left of season that will be fine, but those will get installed over the winter. The water slide pump has not been replaced since I've been here, so I'm just putting that in as a placeholder for 2025. Locker room painting, door replacement. So if you visit the pool and see the rusting out of the metal doors, just for 2 sets of double doors of like, not even like the entry doors, there's like $12,000 or something. So that they're very expensive, but they're at a point where they all probably need to be replaced from a safety standpoint. And then shade structures again is another theme, is that if we are staying here, I think in the next couple of years, we should look at investing in some additional shade structures on deck. Okay, any questions with the pool?
I like the staff vehicle, I think that's a great thing. Would be appreciated by them, makes a lot of sense.
Bid out replacement. For the pool.
That's gonna be 12 million.
This, okay. I'm just curious.
8 to 12 million is the running total right now. And given that it's Monona and we're sitting on an old dump site, we're built to build on site, it would be on the high end of that, because we'll have some environmental catch-up issues that. But yeah, a lot of new pools have been built in the last 5 years across the state of Wisconsin, and that's kind of the 8 to 12. If you want comparable with adding zero depth entry, you know, now Sun Prairie, actually, of the Dane County communities, Sun Prairie, Middleton and Monona all built their pools within 2 years of each other. So Sun Prairie is the first to actually start. They're downsizing due to lifeguarding issues, and they have a very big competitor with the Prairie Athletic Club. And so their attendance is not nearly as high at their pool as it is here in Monona at our pool. So
They have zero depth.
they do have a
Are they
zero.
gonna keep that, or?
I think, yeah, I think they're just in the conceptual phases right now, but the big point is just looking at the trends of usage, and certainly zero depth is an important part of the modern pools.
What does that mean?
We just walk kind of
Like a
right
beach.
into the.
Oh,
like a
okay,
beach, yeah.
gotcha.
Not the steps down.
Steps,
Yeah,
So it makes it more accessible.
Like good, like Goodman.
right, yeah.
Goodman, yeah.
Prairie, yeah. The pool, I was like,
Yeah, it's like a little water park.
oh, really?
Huh.
So yeah, that is, I'm very confident that as today's dollars, that may go up, but there's been several really nice pools that have been built. Community center, so we had the remodel in for this year. We bid it out, we got 0 bidders. And that was with a budget of like 212,000. That was to redo the stairwell. A wellness room or a janitorial room was for the senior center. More senior center updates. Ours was just gonna be cosmetic, office reconfigure, so we could kind of merge a copy room and our offices where. The 4 of admin team members would be in kind of one office area. And so no one bid on it. In the meantime, there's been an emergency, police, fire department bathroom issue. And that got approved, that council, I believe, on Monday night for the contract, which being funded through some of this project for the community center. So I think it's important for the senior center to continue to try to do this project. Since we bid it out, we had 2 contractors approach us about the project and the scope. And are interested in bidding on it, and we're working with our architect to get a better construction estimate from one or both of those on what it would take to do kind of a reduced scope. We had some other alternatives in the original base bid that included maybe like if we're staying at the community center for after school and summer camp program, we'd really like to see this, that, and the other in the main hall. And we're kind of pulling those out with the assumption that we're going to make our best case effort to secure an agreement by the end of this year with the school district for the use of Maywood starting next summer. We hope that will happen, but we'll see.
Has there been any communication?
There's been more communication, and it's basically will be in our legal counsel's hands at this point to draft the agreement and debate the merits of what language should or should not be included in the contract and the agreement. But there's definitely still interest on both sides. It's just, but we'll be putting a lot of our effort into making sure we try to get that to our boards before the end of the year. Hopefully before budget time.
So does this, so we spent about 110,000, I think. It
Yeah.
was, for the bathroom repairs.
I put 80 in other revenues in the budget request. Cause I think we had 2 something, so maybe there's a little bit more. I know then Diane had the one bathroom in the lower level is getting replaced or renovated. I can't remember if she had money in her own capital budget for that this year already, or if that was part of what was supposed to be this original remodel. So I'll just have to double check with our finance director, Hotaker, and see what that number would come out at. That may be revised based on what the contractors look at and see. I just want to make sure if we get to a kind of that base minimum of the stairwell office reconfiguration, ideally, we can get that out and see where the budget's at. If there was money being left over and our recreation programs were using Maywood, there may be some, at least I'd probably be recommending that we at least paint the main hall and maybe look at light fixtures that could make it more suitable for city functions and nonprofit organizations to have events back at the community center.
Oh, community center.
Yeah, at the community center.
You don't have any money in for any work at Maywood, so details to be worked out.
That'll be worked out. I mean, I think through year 1, we'd probably not have to worry about anything other than maybe some operational chairs and tables and things like that, that I think we can absorb in. We'll have to see what was left over from Maestro 2, because I think they're now completely out of there. So there may just be enough stuff in there that we can use and absorb in our operating budget. Ideally, the agreement is a 3-year agreement, which over the course of those 3 years, we would be joint funding kind of a building study of mid and long-term repairs needed for the building to continue to use it for that purpose.
Will you use the whole building?
Ideally, we're using a vast chunk of it. There will be a transitional education program that I think will be there this year. So it's a 19 to 21-year-old program with special needs that will be housed out of there. There's a multi-purpose room, there's offices. There's 18 classrooms, I believe. I think we're kind of at a place where originally we were in that 12 to 14 classroom for the size of the program that we anticipate having a dedicated tumbling room, dedicated art room, dedicated computer room. And then we want to have maybe something for our seasonals, like our park season, our park seasonals, all 7 of them really don't have a place to eat their lunch. We don't have dedicated break rooms, etc. So that building could site do that, and then I would anticipate, I would think there would be some senior or active aging programs that could use some of those as well.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Keep the young and old together.
But I did put some other additional items in moving forward at the community center. I think the roof is at a point where it's gonna need to be replaced in the next couple of years. The parking lot, resurfacing areas of the parking lot that won't be part of the, that might be included as the public safety building, but there's certainly a lot of areas in that parking lot that are not good. So there we go.
Okay.
That's overall, I think we've tried to be, I've tried to propose more conservative capital budgets over the last couple of years, and unfortunately, I can't just continue to pull back on some things that I think need to get done. Whether we have a public safety building or not, or whether we're trying to save for one, but we still have existing facilities that need attention. Okay, we have precisely 19 minutes to debate and discuss before we have to be on for landmarks.
Oh, very good. Well, does anybody have anything else? Just any comments on it
I
or?
think it's a thorough budget. I think you've done a good job with it, Jake.
Yeah, I think that's a good word. Good description of it. Thorough, yeah.
I have kind of a silly question. When we talk about lighting for things like pickleball and tennis courts and stuff, those are timed lights then,
Yeah,
and they go on automatically, or? do they
no,
have
there's a
people-
little push button,
And it goes on for a certain.
and then it
amount of
goes
time?
on till supposed to stay until 10 o'clock, depending on.
Oh, so once you push the button, it's on until 10.
Yeah, I think at the skate park and tennis courts, I don't know if they have like a 2-hour time limit or not, but generally in the High Point, that's all you're gonna get.
And then when we're putting in bathrooms, like we put in Schluter, all of those are timed, right, in terms of access.
Correct. Yep, those all have time door locks and the dusk till dawn lighting cells.
Just curious kind of things.
So do we need a motion to? approve?
Could I just add to Pat's comment, Jake, that looking at the budget, I think it was really well thought out as well. I think you looked at what was needed in order to maintain what everyone is used to for the parks, and really enjoy all of the parks and the pool, what they all have to offer.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Good, so,
Then, yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the budget as proposed.
in a second. Good. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Hi.
I
Motion carried. That's all we have, right? Any report? There's lab reports.
Felt like I've talked a lot today, so if you have not heard, there's I don't know how you call it, it's like Barbie Mania, and you are all invited to Barbie night at Below Deck on Friday night. We are having Barbie trivia night at 6:30.
Are you appearing as Ken?
Apparently, some of my staff feels like I'm the Ken, like it's movie, but I am like Ken, and I said, no, I'm Ron Swanson, and they're like, you're either all in or nothing at all, so. They're celebrating pop culture in the most, and there's been a lot of discussions, and it's gone a lot of different ways, but we are gonna be having specialty Sundays with the pink, and Emily's got a little Barbie box for photos, and then we'll have all things Barbie on Friday night too. It seems like it's a hot topic,
You
and I
got your
said,
pink on already.
yeah, it's got its pink on, so come get your Ken and Barbie.
We got these already.
Special thanks to Missy and Landon from PD on organizing National Night Out last night. Really great turnout, and had a lot of different vendors, and always kind of a fun end of summer with the ending of the senior concerts in the park. That was their last Tuesday. Upcoming on the schedule, we have beer garden
20.
on the San Damiano on the 25th, and then 17th is at Schluter, so they'll be our last two in August. Next month's meeting will include the operating budget, most likely, and that is not going to be a very fun meeting for all of us, given the instructions that we're looking at. So I think that's about all I have, unless there's any questions or comments regarding Park and Rec.
So you'll send something out for a meeting in another week or 2 weeks?
It'll be September, let's see, September 13th, right? Will be the second Wednesday.
Or you had mentioned, I think in your notes that we might have to meet in.
We may have to meet, yeah. I don't know.
For Maywood.
Yeah, we're meeting next week, Wednesday, I believe, and then I'm on vacation. That following week, the week of the 20th. So I'll see. If anything, it would be that week of the 28th, or we'll just double up with on the 13th.
Would you pass on to Missy and crew to it? As hard as they work, they still manage to be creative and come up with
Yeah.
new things. And it's great to have that kind of energy and what they do to bring the community together in different ways.
I'd like to see him try an Oppenheimer night instead of.
Wait for that next iteration.
Yeah.
You are one.
Yeah, well, if we could have a reality show on the conversations in our office. Yeah, speaking of that, so former park board alder Andy Kitzlar gave my name to a person, writer, and so I'll be featured in called Madison Styles or Madison Living magazine in September. So and of course the question we always get is like, is your job like, I'm like, yes, it's exactly like that. And we could house a reality show with the personalities we have in our department, the conversations and the debates and the people that come in and yell at us and ask questions and laugh with us. So we do, sometimes you have to laugh because otherwise you cry. And then our team is, I think the culture of our team has really been awesome. We have a lot of freedom of kind of debate and discussion. And then sometimes we just scratch our heads and just say, well, that's just Jake, or that's just, because it's like, it's a lot of running around. This time of year, most people are like sad that summer's, I'm like, I'm very, very happy that summer's ending and fall is starting.
So Madison Magazine or Madison Lifestyles? It's not Madison Magazine.
No, I think it's Madison Lifestyles. What is that?
Well,
Lakeview.
Oh.
Lakeview Neighbors?
Oh,
maybe?
that neighborhood magazine.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. The one that I dislike.
Oh, there you go. Well,
The one that ropes you into long-term advertising contracts and then never lets you out.
Oh.
As I experienced.
I've had an experience. So it wasn't an article about you, it was the lock-in.
Yeah, it was brutal. It was brutal. I mean, it's 5 years. Not doing anything for me, and I don't want to do this in payment. It's not relevant. Yes.
I had one question. I know the Rock and Brews Marathon, I think, is coming up. We approved it for alcohol license yesterday.
okay,
Is that the one that's caused problems in the past with parking and stuff?
we've had challenges with just event management,
Yeah.
and they had some other issues last year. Rock and Brews will be on Saturday, September 2nd. That's the last set, well, the first one post pool season will be happening. We do have Rock and Brews. They did get approved for their permit for this year from city staff, and I think there's some questions right now at the last minute about their medical director that they don't have and some stuff that they're dealing with the fire department. So that'll get sorted out. We do have another race event.
Oh, it's the marathon.
Yeah,
That has not completed paperwork, that has been advertising that their event goes through Monona, and so we're waiting on that one to actually come in or have discussions with those officials, but that's a different marathon race in November. Goes Rock and Brews, and then we'll have the dog walk, which is great, and the Czar's dog walk, which is no problem, and fall festival, and the Philly festival with Mezbah will be at the end of September. So and provide a date of those events that are happening, but
okay. Any updates on DEI efforts or, yeah,
not on our end.
any update on Sandown Animal Steering Committee and Friends of Sandown Animal?
Steering committee, I can't update, but
Right.
Jake could. And then the next the thing that we're working on now is the gala, the celebration on the shore, which is Friday, September 8th, and busy with of things in terms of just getting the site ready and all the decisions made and the program planned and the
5 minutes, no worries.
yeah, just the whole
Yeah.
evening parking and food and all the details that go. We'll be looking for volunteers too for as it gets closer and
For
some
that night or for prior to that night?
both.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
It will help.
But yeah,
Prior
we'll
to that,
see.
plenty. Going to.
I'll fill you in. We're working on kind of a volunteer list
Okay.
right now. But, yeah.
okay. And the steering committee is taking a month off when Neil could, the new administrator, can sort of dig into what we've done so far and give them some time to do that. Then the committee will meet again in September. Right, taking this month. off.
Correct.
Yeah,
Is he coming from another city position? Someone.
He was the economic development director for the city of Green Bay.
Green Bay.
And before that was the economic development director for Sun Prairie.
Oh, okay, good.
all right, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Patrick says second.
Patrick.
Yes.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed?
Thanks, Jennifer.
Thanks, we're adjourned. Thanks, Jennifer.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You too.
Bye.